Welcome to Equipping Leaders, a podcast where I share and discuss resources, tools, and information to equip leaders to build creative, cohesive teams through culture and leader development. Welcome to the Equipping Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Natasha, and today I'm going to talk about feedback. So what is feedback? Specifically, feedback in the workplace is classically defined as a process of giving constructive suggestions to the employees by their reporting managers or supervisors, and sometimes their peers, because feedback can help employees and the organization constantly get better at what they do. So that's an excellent definition, but that could also all be very misguided. In a Harvard Business Review article, Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall said that telling people that what we think of their performance doesn't help them thrive and excel, and telling people how we think they should improve actually hinders learning. They also state that theories that involve why other people need our feedback is self-centeredness. We take our own expertise and what we are sure as other people's inexpertise as givens, and they assume that my way is necessarily your way. So let's break down some potential elements of feedback, both in how it is given and how it is received. So how do we receive feedback? There are official avenues of assessments and evaluations. Assessments are typically in an academic or educational environment, and your knowledge or skills are being assessed. And this can be really beneficial for someone who wants a structured path to development where they are tested to see if they have attained the required knowledge. I know that I personally am a big fan of assessments because I want to know if I actually know in a quantifiable way the information that's necessary to be an expert in something. Assessments are also perceived as objective because either you know the information or you've demonstrated the skill or you haven't. So pretty objective. Now, evaluations are usually more in the workplace, and they cover a period of time or a certain work role. And these are perceived as very subjective. This is one person evaluating the performance of another. And also 360-degree evaluations fall here too. A 360-degree evaluation is done by senior individuals, peers, and subordinates in your organization where they are evaluating your performance or certain traits. So then there's the fallout of feedback. We will likely receive more evaluations than assessments in our lives, so we must learn how to get the most out of them. I was talking with a friend the other day about how sometimes the evaluations that you get in the workplace don't hold much weight because you and the person who's evaluating you are not in line with the same objectives. So this could be the same when you're evaluating someone as well, where there's just not the level of respect, the level of trust that is necessary for feedback to really be impactful and effective. And so I've said it in almost all of my past episodes, and I'll stress it again here, that as a leader, you must work to build trust with the people in your organization. When you do that, your honest and candid feedback and evaluations will hold weight. Now, we still have to be careful when we give feedback, especially if that feedback is negative or critical. You can have the most trust with someone, but it still is an area that needs to be handled with care. So we all need honest feedback, and we don't need people to blow smoke just so that we feel better. But our brain cannot help but take negative feedback as conflict, and conflict messes with our brain. When an individual receives negative feedback, their brain essentially shuts down for about 18 minutes. And in those 18 minutes, the brain cannot take additional feedback in. So if we give or receive negative feedback, whatever follows is lost on the individual because their brain is too busy trying to figure it out and to try to reset. But people still need honest feedback. So how do we do that? We will get to that, but first, let's dissect why negative feedback is such a challenge. So in his book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, John Maxwell talks about the law of pain. And the law of pain states that good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. But we have to understand why we're feeling that pain and struggle. Within the law of pain, John Maxwell also discusses what he calls the pain files, which are 12 areas where people struggle. Understanding these areas and how they impact us will make us better at receiving negative feedback because we'll better understand how we're challenged in that area. In a previous episode, I also talked about the stages of loss in the workplace, and that structure can assist people when overcoming certain challenges and pain points as well. As we jump into John Maxwell's 12 pain files, consider which of these you have experienced in both a personal and professional context. The purpose of this is to consider how we can give or receive the best feedback when the feedback represents one of these areas for us or potentially for someone else. First, we have the pain of inexperience. This is the realization that I have never been through this before, and I had different expectations than how it turned out. But those expectations are due to a lack of experience and maturity in that situation. It is painful because we don't have the heuristic availability to drive us forward. We don't have those experiences that have built us up to this place. The upside of this pain is that we experience it differently and in some areas less over time. It's one of those pain files where the more reps we get, the less it knocks us off course. Next, we have the pain of incompetence. So this is usually when you are either brand new to something or you are not working in your strengths and doing something that is not meant for you. When we are brand new to something, there's a level of incompetence that comes with what's called the beginner's mind. And if we stick to it and we focus, we can overcome that. But there are times when we are just not meant to do something and we will never be good at it. This is especially important when we work with people. We have to find our strengths in areas working with people. Otherwise, you're not adding any value to others, and you will be constantly frustrated, and the people around you will be frustrated too. So John Maxwell gives the example of doing a lot of counseling at the start of his career, and he admits that he was absolutely terrible at it, but it forced him to reevaluate his gifting and where he could add value. So he shifted his focus and was able to really create a movement and add value to thousands of people. Then there's the pain of disappointment. And this pain comes from unmet expectations, either personal or professional. When we really wanted a certain outcome, but it turned out differently, we'll be disappointed. And disappointment can knock us off our axle. Then we have the pain of conflict. This one is heavily entrenched in our interactions with people, which is the basis of our life. The pain of conflict should always encourage us to reflect more as a leader. We cannot eliminate conflict from our lives, but we can learn to manage it better. But even the best management of conflict does not eliminate the pain. As John Maxwell says, human encounter doesn't always feel good, but we always have to keep pushing forward. Next, we have the pain of change. This is another pain file that we cannot eliminate, no matter how hard we try. The only constant is change. Change is always painful, because when things are changing and going to be different, we don't know all of the effects that it will have on us personally and professionally. Many people would rather stay in a terrible situation than face the pain of change to find something new. The terrible known for them is better than the unexpected unknown. Next, we have the pain of bad health. So when our body does something unexpected or we develop something that causes us to take pause, it is painful, physically and emotionally. We want our bodies to draw in the magical healing abilities that we know it's capable of. But when our bodies don't do that, we experience a lot of pain. And whether that pain is physical or emotional, we have to acknowledge that it's going to knock us off our course. Next, we have the pain of hard decisions. And this comes from the inevitable truth that you cannot make everyone happy. There is never a perfect universal solution. One of the skills of advanced leadership is the ability to make hard and unpopular decisions. It is also important to remember that hard decisions are relative. A difficult choice for one person may not be perceived as difficult for another. Next, we have the pain of financial loss. This is one that people feel in different ways. But whether one cannot pay their rent or they experience a loss due to a market downturn, financial loss is tangible and can negatively impact our lives in multiple ways. Then we have the pain of relationship losses. A romantic relationship, a friendship, or a business relationship are all painful losses. We work to cultivate relationships of all kinds, and when those end, we feel that pain of all that effort, of all that connection being lost. So this pain can make us question all of our other relationships that are similar to that. It can make us lose faith in people. We have to make sure that we take care of ourselves and others through these types of losses. The pain of not being number one is next, and this comes from a feeling of you deserving to be in a position or a place based on merit or your current position or effort. There will always be people who are more respected, more beloved, and more sought out than you. And for some people, this is really painful to them. They want to be that voice. They want to be maybe the only voice in a certain area or the most prevalent voice, and not being that, that's a tough pill to swallow for some people. Then we have the pain of traveling, and this is one that I feel to the very depths of my soul. And this is the feeling of disconnect that you experience when you're away, whether you're away from work and being just desperate to jump in and see who needs your help, or the pain of being away from your home and family. I feel the pain of traveling anytime I am not at home. I feel completely empty and just off. Finally, we have the pain of responsibility. People expect a lot from each other, and especially from leaders. Being a leader is an amazing opportunity to add value to others and make their workplace and even their lives better. The responsibility of leadership is huge, worth it, but it is huge. And when I think of that, it makes me think of the concept of who or what is at your helm. So I was in this amazing class the other day, and one of the guides said, "Who is at your helm?" And what she was driving towards was what values are at the helm of our internal ship. When we can understand this, it actually helps us receive all kinds of feedback in a new way. If growth or love or integrity are at the helm, it will impact us differently than if, say, like security or money are at the helm. Because if our security or money are threatened, it would then capsize us, right? It would set the whole internal ship off. But this is not to say that those things are not important. So like I said in the Motivators episode, we'll be motivated by different things throughout our lives depending on our life stage and goals. But consider what is at the helm of your internal ship and what could potentially be the oars. So if the oars are security or money and one of those gets taken out, it doesn't take out the whole ship. So think about what's at the helm, what's really driving it, what's that core value that's driving it, and then you have these other motivators and these other values that can make up the oars. So what do we do? Let's cycle back to the question of how do we give honest feedback that is potentially negative without shutting down another human being? We want to inform about a behavior and not about a person or their character. And that's whether that information is good or bad. So this is where our word choice comes in very heavily. There is a huge difference between saying, you messed this up, or you need to be better, or you did this wrong, versus asking, like, what was your process? A coaching mindset and that heart of a teacher will enable you to be more curious about the behavior and not wanting to jump in and be quick to shut it down. Those types of conversations will help both of you understand each other, and when you can understand the pieces that made up a decision, you can see where adjustments need to be made. So when it comes to providing feedback, whether through evaluations or other means, you will make the most impact if you find out how the other person wants to be evaluated and what they want to receive feedback on. If you jump in and try to fix your perceived issues with the other person, they are going to shut down and the effort is going to be pointless. But if you know that you need to communicate quantifiable results and you understand that the individual wants feedback on how they lead a team, you can accomplish both communicating the organization's needs and developing the individual. Many people want to know how they are doing in the organization and get candid feedback in the areas that they wish to develop. It is possible for someone to give feedback when a relationship has not yet been established, right? We have to do that in many of our different workplaces. And this is a skill that all leaders can work to develop. A coaching mindset, emotional intelligence, the heart of a teacher, and genuine care for others will create a connection that can be built upon over time. So how do we put this into action? First, we need to understand the feedback mechanism. Is it basic kind of on-the-spot feedback? Is it an evaluation? Is it an assessment? Be honest about what it is and what type of information the feedback is designed to give. Then, what is the feedback that the receiver is looking for? And how can you provide quantifiable data to this point, as well as some insights for the other person's development? There is I would call it a unique arrogance that comes with thinking that you absolutely know how other people want to grow, or that people want to grow like you did. People have to be willing to make sacrifices, of course, to get to certain places in their lives, but that path is going to be different for everyone. No two people walk the same path and end up at the same result. There are too many factors that interplay, from experience and generation, attitude, the changing workplace landscape, the field that they're in, their life circumstances, and many more things. So also remember that feedback can be intense. Bear in mind how you would want feedback personally and professionally, and assess the most appropriate delivery. Consider John Maxwell's 12 pain files from The Law of Pain. And then finally, keep in mind that feedback is not a grenade that you launch at someone and then leave them alone to pick up the pieces. One of the tasks of leadership is to help in meaning making. And as leaders, we can all do that with those skills, like I said earlier, of coaching mindset, emotional intelligence, heart of a teacher, and that genuine care. And when you have those things, your feedback will be more robust, it will help the organization, and it will help the individual. Thank you for listening to the Equipping Leaders podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at novel_Natasha or on Twitter at Natasha Cheyenne. Please join me next time for more insight and resources to equip leaders.